Hi. So I'm probably the least qualified person to be here. The reason is that I'm just an edtech entrepreneur. And we started with building a platform for IIT and medical test prep, but we just wanted to do a very, very good job actually helping students out and staying scalable. So what happened was that we realized that it's impossible to do that unless we actually went into deep personalization of education for every student and truly, truly understand content really well. In order to do that, it was impossible to do it because if you're honest about diversity and the multiple different aspects of every student and the diversity of content, you simply have to go ahead and start to explore machine learning and more statistical analysis and so on and so forth. And chasing that journey, 4.5 years later, we become a platform which is exploring many, many applications of artificial intelligence, including some of the ones that Rajiv touched upon. And probably, it's very interesting to be part of that journey every day. I'm joined by our chief data scientist, Keyur. He's probably more qualified to talk, but so I'm just going to have this chat. So basically, so we're basically in this hole, trying to build personalization for education, and we just realized that the kind of problems that started to get unraveled, it was impossible to build personalized education as a product. It had to be a platform. And when we woke up and actually looked at what people were saying about this, we realized that there were a lot of leading people across the world. There's this article by an EdSurge News guy called Michael Feldstein who said personalized education is not just a product. And anybody who says that we're going to build personalized education standalone with doing what we're doing is probably sort of not really appreciating the depth of stuff that needs to be done to truly personalize education and make a real dent using technology in the outcomes for students. Next, please. So let's just take a step back from artificial intelligence and talk about human intelligence first, all right? So when I started this company, the first thing I did was I went around India, went to 25 cities and met a lot of teachers and said, hey, so what are these really, really good teachers all about and what do they do differently from teachers who are probably not as experienced? And how do these teachers actually make a dent in learning outcomes or scores or marks or ability for students? And we realized something very interesting. The best teachers were excellent at two things. The first is a nuanced understanding of the student. When I say nuanced understanding of the student, it extends way beyond the knowledge of the student. It goes into the personality. It goes into looking at the student and saying, you're not going to be able to make it to IIT or you're not going to be able to get a good grade. And the second thing was, they had extremely amazing appreciation of the content that they were dealing with, as well as the context in which that content was being utilized. So for example, they'd look at a chapter and they say, this is the concept where kids get stuck. And this is after tens, of years, decades of years of sort of experience in actually teaching that subject, where every year you get exposed to the same data and you keep learning and learning and learning and learning. So this is human learning. And we were like, this is very interesting. That means clearly, if you actually want to build an intelligent tutoring system that can personalize education and scale it to every student, you have to have a very strong handle on two aspects. One is student intelligence, and the second is content intelligence. Next, please. So we actually ended up building and starting to unravel problems around each of these aspects as we tackled the subject of how to increase student scores for, let's say, IIT and medical entrance exams, in a very, very dramatically, amazing way. So the first thing, so let me start to sort of give you some sense of what this really means. So content intelligence, just think about that, right? If you have a student who's preparing for, let's say, 11th standard mathematics, right? And you want to really make sure that that student is doing a good job with 11th standard mathematics, one thing that you can do is pick up a textbook and give him questions from that textbook where you have chapter 1, question 1, chapter 2, question 2. The second thing that you can do is you can really start to think that, wait, this question, belongs to certain categories. So for example, it might be a question which is rote learning. This might be a question that is a synthesis question. It might be an evaluation question. It might be a very complex question which involves deep intuitive thinking and appreciation of the subject. Or it may be a straightforward question, all tagged to the same concept. Right? So if you want to know where the child is getting stuck and you want to give him unlimited adaptive learning or adaptive questions on that particular sequence, how do you generate all that data? Or how do you generate all that content? It's impossible for a single entity to have enough content to do justice to all the different types of students out there who are trying to learn that same concept or learn that same question if you truly want to service each child individually. So Imbibe, for example, crunches 48 parameters per question as part of our model to figure out how are questions different from each other. So clearly, if you want to crack content intelligence, you have to build some kind of ingestion models and write parsers so that somehow all the content on the world is able to come onto your platform so you can do justice to the requirement of that one student. The second piece, I just give you an example from student intelligence, is that what are the different pieces, that actually impact student learning outcomes. So we talked about, for example, motivation of a student, right? That is one aspect. It is one measurement angle that you can follow by looking at how students engage with your platform. That is the student motivated or not, and how do you actually tell that from the data that you're gathering from your platform with the student engaging. The second thing that you can do is how knowledgeable is that student on that particular piece of content that you're tackling. How do you calibrate knowledge for a student on that particular concept that the student is tackling when that concept could be reused either in the J exam or in the medical exam where the difficulty levels are different. Right? So there is essentially a lot of diversity. So knowing both of these pieces, what eventually comes out as an outcome is mentor intelligence, and you start to discover models. So for example, one of the models that we discovered is a model called Imbibe Score Quotient. And this model says that student scores are a combination of behavior and knowledge. And behavior actually constitutes 40% of student scores for this particular application aspect, which is the IIT exam. Okay? So let's just go deeper and understand, each of these separately. And by the way, this mentor intelligence, student intelligence, content intelligence, different sort of aspects of our platform actually have a pretty significant stack driving them. Next, please. So there is a lot of different applications. One of the examples that I want to touch upon that Rajiv gave was, he said, they have a 20,000 strong taxonomy of products. It's very hard to classify entities as to what they belong to. So we have a 15,000 strong taxonomy of concepts. And we've actually built a smart tagging system that is able to decide this question belongs to which particular cluster of concepts within that taxonomy. Okay? So there's a lot of sort of work underway that the team is doing. But let's just jump into some specific examples. Can you move ahead, please? So let's think about knowledge. All right? So knowledge is supposed to be linear. Whenever we think about knowledge, we think about a textbook. Right? And the second thing that we know about knowledge, but we never literally actually see in the real world, is that knowledge through grades is connected. So whatever you learn in the first grade follows you in the second grade, follows you into the third grade and the fourth grade. But where is the data continuum of this knowledge actually existing? And who's actually figured out what connects into what? And who decides what is a learning object? Learning object would mean something like a concept. So what you might call a concept, I might call a topic. And somebody has to decide whether it's broken down, into as many pieces as needed, possibly. And all of these applications are not going to happen through manual intervention. So what we went ahead and did was, we said, first let's actually look at the graph. So when everybody else was encoding their content in the form of topics and concepts and, syllabus, we went ahead and actually took a stab at building the graph for 11th and 12th grade. And we connected 15,000 concepts, this is all manual calibration, into one single graph. And we tagged a bunch of questions, and this was again manual tagging in the beginning, before smart people like you joined us. We tagged a bunch of these questions to these concepts. And you know what this is on my right? This is actually the knowledge graph of the 11th and 12th grade with 4 years of attempts from Indian students. So if you see here, this is clearly not a linear line. There are a lot of circular references, there are recursive loops that exist in this knowledge graph. And therefore, if you actually want to do true adaptive sequencing, you've got to figure out what the roadblocks are. Not only that, you've got to continuously question yourself, what are the connections? Are these connections meaningful? And this graph has to be reinforced. We've got to apply reinforced learning to figure out that how do the different attempts that you're collecting every day tell you whether the graph's interconnections and the graph's calibration itself is valid. So this is a very interesting problem that we're working on, and now extending this knowledge graph, backwards towards K-12 and forward towards other exams. Next, please. So what is an application of this? Adaptive sequencing of content. So adaptive sequencing is nothing but, what you study is different from what I study, depending upon what you show me, you can do, and what I show a teacher that I can do. So one of the applications we built as part of one of our products called RankUp is, if you have 150,000 questions and 15,000 concepts, and a student is standing here and saying, hey, just tell me what I should do. How do you pick out 300 to 400 questions and only 10 concepts for that student to learn? Right? So how do you do that? You can't do that without a graph. The other thing is that the most important concepts may be different from what you're naturally strong at. So this is not just about student ability. Unless you understand the content underlying and the relevance of this content and the context it's being used, It's impossible to make those recommendations, right? So we're dealing with a lot of data, a lot of contextual learning here. So one of the problems that we think about is, hey, if Newton's laws of motion is Newton's laws of motion, you're going to hear a lot of science in this conversation, is Newton's laws of motion, then how does it change when it becomes part of the GCSE syllabus versus being part of the JEE syllabus versus being part of the 12th grade board exam, let's say in Tamil Nadu? Right? So there is a range of difficulty levels. There are some ways you've got to figure out to build classifiers to answer that problem statement. So this is one thing. So if you look at this particular piece, we picked out these questions, and just yesterday I got a call from a teacher who's using this product, and he said, hey, you know what? Your algorithm said that quadratic equations needs to be studied to solve limits, which is calculus, which is completely different chapters. One is algebra, the other is calculus, right? So he said, but this doesn't feel right. And we proved to him that the graph is actually connected. So that's a surprise. And the next thing that happened was he looked at the questions. Our algorithm recommended 15 questions for quadratic equations to that kid. So I was like, okay, so what do you think? He looked at the question and said, Aditi, 3 are not relevant. How do you solve this? You basically take a step back and say, what is different about these 3 questions? So 2 maths teachers looked at it and said, you know what, this particular question has this concept used, but it's actually a different application of it. So the student could feel it, the teacher could see it, but the algorithm still has to learn it. So what does this mean? Building stronger similar question models, right? Move on, please. The next thing is behavior. There is a very interesting article I read that said that, if by 2020, 5 million jobs are getting eliminated by AI, what is going to be the hardest nut for AI to crack, okay? And the answer was, and what are going to be the most valuable skills, therefore, by 2020, in which you're actually going to be differentiated, otherwise machines are going to take over your jobs. So the answer was social and emotional skills, deep cognitive skills, engagement with one another, complex human exchanges, collaboration, managing that stuff. So we actually took a stab at modeling behavior and figuring out, and we're actually the only edtech company in the world that does this with statistically valid data so far. Okay. So what we said was, okay, so the student score model, how else does it get impacted besides with knowledge, which is what you saw on the previous slide. It also gets impacted through behavior. And we actually sat there and figured out, what kind of parameters are actually impacting behavior, how do you detect them, and then how do you actually set goals per child, and predict that this goal is achievable by that child at a cohort level, and then how do you further fine-tune these cohorts into hundreds of thousands of versions because there are so many different students. In fact, if you look at the bottom right corner here, this actually refers to 2 behavioral parameters changing because of Imbibe's interventions on the product. The one on the left is careless mistakes, the one on the right is overconfident attempts. And you see the behavior here across 3 cohorts, which is what we're doing right now. Okay? But now what the team is doing is, how do you actually take this deeper and focus on situations where a child may be very strong at physics, but very weak in chemistry and very strong at maths, which is a very common occurrence that happens. And within maths, very strong at algebra, very weak at calculus. So that means that the same child would belong to multiple performance cohorts across the syllabus. So it's a very interesting problem to solve, saying, how do you actually write, and how do you write algorithms to actually solve for this problem? Because there is, the most data and the most diversity is in humanity, okay? And this is the human capital personalization problem, right? Can we move ahead, please? So how does this come together? I mentioned ESQ earlier. The bottom right chart, talks to you about cohort analysis. We've actually filed our first patent, which is, a self-learning machine for score improvement. We understand we're probably the only company in the world that actually has a patent in this space. And, based on the patent research that we did. So what this is saying is, your academic ability varies as you go up the ability pyramid, okay? But what is not exposed is your behavior and your test-taking skills, which is your intent and the way you write tests. So which means that all learning assessments in the world now suddenly have a question, because they're all based on knowledge. So if you're saying that as a weak student, you decide to mark all Bs, on a multiple choice question, you statistically will get 25% right, pure probability, right? So that means that I need to know you're fluking it, which is all about behavior, to know your true learning ability. And then influence your true learning ability through a graph. So mapping the cognitive behavior of a child, mapping the behavior of a teacher, And then correlating that with learning outcomes is another very interesting problem that we're solving. And I think we're just getting started on the kind of possibilities that we have. And as a startup, it's always like a function of roadmap and, the priorities around what you should solve. But I think one of the very interesting things that we've done as a company is that we started razor sharp focused on learning outcomes, because EdTech AI it can almost spiral into an R&D problem, which is not focused on solving a solution. There are so many different paths that you can walk down at any given point of time. Move to the next one, please. One thing I forgot to mention just on the previous slide, please, is that what is the output of all of this, right? So I'm very pleased to inform you that basis the interventions that we are making, students have actually shown an improvement in test scores of over 62% over 10 test exposures to Imbibe. This is for the IIT entrance exam. A kid scoring 200 gets to 283. A kid scoring 7 gets to 28. Okay? Just because we're making personalized interventions at the level that we're making them right now, both on behavior modification as well as on knowledge. Right? And every time this happens, we actually correlate this with an effort rating and predict the student's ability as to where he can get to next. The interesting thing is that the way we've developed these algorithms and these models, we've made them exam agnostic and academic content agnostic. And today, there are a lot of leading education providers in this country who are talking to us about building their exams and their legacy content onto this platform. And which brings me to the second part, of the intelligence, systems that you're talking about, which is content intelligence. Move next, please. So, as I mentioned to you, the basic goal that we were looking to fulfill was that one child, any child, should just get the best of everything out there, right? And we realized one company cannot build that content alone. So we actually made investments into content ingestion and those kind of technologies 2 years ago, and started out thinking about computer vision and figuring out, how do you actually increase the efficiency of content production. We today have a PhD on our team who's actually specialized in content ingestion. We're building an advisory panel around this piece. And there's a lot of interesting work that's happened. And part of, what we're doing here is what was related to, smart tagging and, building out the taxonomy and making sure it's current and whatnot. We built things like automated test generators. These test generators are so powerful that teachers look at them and say, I'm not setting a test again. And this is teachers with 20, 25 years of experience. Now, educators are getting up and saying, hey, this is going to save my time. So how do I participate in it, right? And this is actually proving mindset changing on an on-ground level in terms of adoption of this technology, both in terms of corporates as well as in terms of teachers who are notoriously hard to do business with and adopt technology. Right? Next, please. So this is automated content processing. Concepts are tagged. Now, this month, we are poised to launch 20,000 questions completely smart tagged using our algorithms for biology. Now, think about the complexity here. Rajiv was also talking about product matching, right? Think about a question. Questions have images. Questions have, lexical, they have text, and they have symbols, and then they have meaning. So, when was the Battle of Panipat fought? Rote learning question, 1526 or whatever, the answer is. What would have happened if the outcome of the Battle of Panipat was different? It's a more complex problem, again on the same concept, right? So every time you do this, you got to think of everything from the meaning of the question, the way it challenges you, the kind of skills that are being employed, the difficulty level, what concepts are tagged and whatnot. So 28th of Feb, our basic behavioral tags and knowledge tags will be completely auto-taggable, and within a quarter and a half, we're producing an API, to actually onboard other entities onto the system. So it's very, very interesting, where we are today. If you just think about the future, obviously it gets to how do you start to engage with a student. So today we engage with a student through our product. The product gives recommendations, the product pumps in content and does different things. We're also working on chatbots and intelligent engagement. Only the questions get so much more complex and it's very hard to classify them. It could be everything from I'm not feeling motivated, to how do I solve this problem, to when is my exam date, right? So obviously the future is that you bring this all together, you bring in NLP, you bring in speech synthesis, and you actually create an intelligent tutor entirely powered, through technology. But then what is the challenge here? What is the nightmarish outcome? For me, the nightmarish outcome is that we end up recreating an automated version of the problems of the current education system, which is that a few rich people can afford intensive education because they can pay for it, is replaced by a few very intelligent, tutors backed with some extremely smart and AI-powered algorithms which are not affordable by everybody. And then the other people are basically got cheap teachers with mom and pop chatbots or tutor bots working along with them. So Imbibe's endeavor, and we started in an emerging market, India, and we started where the need for personalization is highest, because this kind of innovation is actually only being chased in the Valley or in a few companies, saying that we want to build an accessible AI platform that democratizes the access to personalized education. And which is why we invested all of our time in the hardest exam that we could find to say if we can increase scores through that and start to calibrate some of the models and stay honest to being scalable, we can probably take this somewhere. So we're starting to make some headroom, and I'd like to tell Keor, I think we finally know what we're doing with this, right? So, so that's education, and I'd be happy to take any questions.